welcome and thank you for spending your Monday evening with me learning about LLMs. It's glad to have you back for those who are returning, and for the ones that are new here, welcome. And just a quick recap, in our last session, we learned what AI is and why it matters for marketers. And today we'll go inside the engine, the brain, the LLM that empowers modern marketing. Obviously, our goal isn't here to be like engineers or anything, but we want to make sure that as marketers, as professionals, we're commanding AI. And again, AI is not here to replace us. It's just here to make us smarter. And excelling with AI, learning with AI will keep us relevant and updated in our respective roles and in the market. So with that being said, let's get started. So give me a quick thumbs up if you have used ChatGPT in the past week or even today. Awesome. Okay, so you've already touched an LLM if you have, but here's where most people, including some marketers, some business professional, will stop. They'll think that ChatGPT means AI. And honestly, that's like thinking that Google is the internet, or running a campaign on Facebook or Instagram means digital marketing, which it isn't. And just like ChatGPT is just one player within the umbrella of AI and even within LLM. So as we move forward, the marketing advantage comes from knowing which LLM, which model to use. And by practice and by the end of the session, you will. So let's get started. So we'll get the technical definition out of the way. So LLM is large language model. Think of LLM as a digital brain, and this brain is trained on the world's language, public text, product documentation, support, articles, academic papers, open web content, code, basic business knowledge. So LLM stores this knowledge not to memorize it, but to recognize and learn in patterns. And if you remember, we went over this in our last class, that AI works around probability and prediction, and so does LLM. So a really cool way to think about LLM is think about hiring an intern who has read all of the marketing case studies that exist, all of the HubSpot courses, LinkedIn marketing teardowns, and 10 years of Reddit marketing trends or any business trends. But they don't know everything. But if you give them a clear brief, they can give you a shockingly strong idea. And that's what an LLM is. It's a pattern master. It's because it's obviously a machine. It's tireless, it's fast, and it levels up every 3 months, which is why if you are a ChatGPT user, you'll notice that it updates every few months. There is a different version of ChatGPT. So we don't need to get technical and know which version is coming out, but it's important to learn how to direct this intelligence as a strategist. So let's now look into how LLMs work. So if we look under the hood for just 1 second, again, not in a technical way, but in a marketing business brain way, we just want to understand how this intern that you've hired reasons. So let's say the LLM that you're choosing to use is ChatGPT. When you type into ChatGPT, it doesn't really fully see the sentences like you and I understand. What it does, it breaks it down into tokens. And tokens can be described as tiny pieces like Lego bricks. So once it takes your prompt, let's just say, and then it predicts based on what's likely the next Lego brick, and then the next one, and then the next one, until it fully forms a thought. Again, so the magic isn't in typing shorter prompts, but being strategic with your context. And we'll explore prompting in our next session. But for now, what you need to know is that what you input will deliver your output. So a weak prompt will, or a weak input, because will result into a weak output. If you put in a strong brief, for example, you'll obviously receive a smarter, sharper thinking. So now that we know how the LLM thinks, it thinks in predictability, it thinks in tokens, and it gives us output based on the best next word. Let's think about how LLM kind of stacks into the entire world of the AI systems. So what LLM does is, again, it's the brain. It's the brain behind all of AI systems. It can think for us, it reasons. Then we have RAG, which is memory, which is in marketing context, could be your brand documentation, your company documentation. Then within AI, we also can add tools and agents. And then we have you as a CEO, the director, the strategist that provides the taste and the ethics. So LLMs are not everything, but they are the brain of this entire AI stack and system. And I want to quickly touch on RAG because I will show you an example later today. So for now, I want you to think about, so RAG, first of all, stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Not to overthink it, but it simply means that AI can reference your brand materials, your company documentation, product documentation, tone, guide, instead of fully relying on the internet. And that's all you need to know for now. And moving on, now we're going to see about how LLMs are already in our marketing worlds. So LLMs have already touched market research when we're creating positioning, ICPs, creative content. It just makes us smarter and come up with better brand stories as long as it knows what we're asking for. It shows up in paid media workflows, CRM systems, especially for personalization, and landing pages and understanding the user experience. And of course, in reporting and insights as well. So anything that says AI-empowered dashboards, those are all the brain aspect of AI. So basically, any role that touches language and decision, an LLM will be your companion. And I want you to notice that I said companion. I'm not saying it will replace you, but it will support you. It will support you as a strategist. It can support you as an analyst, a copywriter, media analyst. So depending on what your role is, which LLM you're using, how you prompt it, that's how an LLM can support you. And I want to get into very quickly on the cost of AI. Cost of LLMs and AI, because there is a cost behind it. As I mentioned earlier, LLM thinks in terms of tokens and the Lego pieces that I talked about, the tiny chunks of text. Approximately 1,000 tokens means about 750 words. And these tokens come with a cost. That's why with freemium LLMs, like the freemium version of ChatGPT, if you prompt it too much, it'll come back and say, hey, you've actually lost some time because you've capped your free tokens for that day. So cost is calculated in tokens, and cost also counts for prompting in, so the prompt that you put in, so tokens in, and then what it generates for you, so the token out. Now, I don't want you to think that, oh, if I use shorter prompts, that means my cost will be low. Technically, of course, on paper, yes. But what we want to do as smart professional is we want to be strategic. We want to focus on the context, meaning that we want an intelligent output. So we're not focused on saving money by giving our LLMs less context. We're going to end up losing the quality and the output that we get. So our goal is to give direction. Our goal is to give our prompts audience, vibe, goals, examples. So a well prompt can potentially save you manual hours of writing, researching, and editing, and it may just cost you like 3 cents. So think about optimizing your ROI with the right LLM and the right prompt. And that's exactly what we're going to get into next. We'll learn about different LLMs from, of course, a marketing lens. So now that we know what an LLM is, it's the brain, how it works in tokens, and these tokens cost us. Let's talk about the general landscape. Just like when we're thinking of creating something that's creative and beautiful, we want to post that on Instagram. If you're looking for a B2B audience, we'll post that on LinkedIn. If we're looking for something video and long form, we'll choose YouTube. So different models have different strengths when it comes to LLM. My favorite and my go-to has always been ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is really great for strategy. It's also multimodal, which means not only can it generate text, but images and even sounds. Then we have Claude, which is really great for storytelling, understanding your voice, your narrative. We have Google's Gemini, and that's great for analysis and video and understanding SEO. Then we have DeepSeek. It's fast and super cost efficient. Perplexity is really great for any type of research and citations. And then we have Llama, which is more for like enterprise internal use for private AI systems. So again, you shouldn't be memorizing these tools because as you use them, you'll learn to understand how to leverage which ones, but your job is to understand what your outcome is. And with that being said, I want to get into a live example where what we're going to do is we're going to take the same prompt. And I do apologize, the prompt is not a prompt that I would typically type, but to keep it simple, we're going to take the same prompt and we'll apply it into different LLM models. And your goal here is to compare the structure, look for the clarity that it gives you, the depth of it, and how creative it is. So what I want to do is I'm going to copy the prompt, and if you feel like, follow along. So let me drop this in the chat. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. I'm being very biased because I come from a B2B SaaS product marketer world, so that's what my prompt is all about. So we're going to ask our LLMs to act as a senior B2B SaaS product marketer and compare Notion and Coda for enterprise. We want to look at ICPs, we want to look at their positioning angles, ad hooks, and let's see what it does for a 90-day go-to-market plan. So we'll go into ChatGPT first, and I am going to type in this prompt. And wow, that was super, super fast. All right, I'll make this screen a little bit bigger. So take a minute or two to read through it. So what it did first was it compared. Then it compared the ICPs. Sorry, gave us an output for the ICP for both. It gave us a positioning angle for both. Demand hooks. I mean, to think about that this happened in literally under 10 seconds is pretty amazing. And then we have a high level go-to-market plan. Like, as I said, my prompt wasn't super in detail. I didn't tell it which team needs it and for what. We'll cover all of that next week. But this is still pretty fascinating for a quick 10-second output. Okay. And if you are following along, and if you did type in this prompt, just give me a thumbs up if you got something similar, or a thumbs down if you got something completely different. Cool, thank you. Okay, now we'll do the same prompt in Claude. So with Claude, what it did, it gave us an executive summary first, and then it jumped into the ideal customer profile. Kind of similar about the ICP, which makes sense. Gave us a competitive matrix, the angles. And then these are the ad hooks. So it gave us a little bit more detail compared to ChatGPT when it comes to the ad hooks. And then here's our 90-day GTM plan. And I think what I'll do next week is we'll use the same example, but we'll follow like more of a detailed prompt. So maybe you can compare a basic prompt versus a very detailed prompt. All right. Very cool. All right, let's shift into Gemini. Wow, this gave us a lot of information. That's awesome. Type in the same prompt here. Is this easier to read? Okay, there we go. Again, starting with the ICP, positioning angle. And the GTM plan. So not as detailed, but it's suggesting to do the next things. Like, for example, battle cards for sales teams. That's pretty cool. And we'll get into DeepSeek. So similar to Claude, it gave us an executive summary here, and then jumped into ideal customer profile by the product. Oh, still going. Okay. It's a lot of detail here. Okay. So as you can see, even with like a very simple prompt, LLMs are super powerful. All right. So they gave us a very detailed 90-day GTM plan, and I want to go into Perplexity. Oops. Type in the same prompt. So you will see that if you recall the deck earlier, I said that Perplexity is really good at like citing information. So that's what it started with. And then it gave us what we were looking for. So Perplexity is really great for market research. That's what I use when I am comparing when I'm researching or comparing different sources for client work. And then it also gave us like other things that we may want to explore. Okay, going back to our presentation. So that was honestly it for today's LLM session, but I do want to give you homework because that's been a request. So, and you're going to have this deck. You'll have the links to all of the LLMs listed here. You're going to run, like pick any prompt that you are working on or you'd like to explore. Run it in different LLM models. And let's run through the same exercise. Like what you want to do is you want to look at the structure. You want to look at which one sounds more strategic, which one would be better for client-facing work, and just get your hands on different LLMs. It's everything about AI, LLMs in general. You have to get your hands dirty and just practice. And what I also want to share with you is Notebook LM. Has anybody used Notebook LM or familiar with Notebook LM? Okay. Okay, some of you have, which is great. So Notebook LM, let me actually share the screen here. So this is by Google, and this is actually really cool. What you get to do here is you get to upload, remember RAG, what I talked about. So you can give your LLM your company documentation or your ICP information or anything that you're looking to compare. With Notebook LM, you can pull sources from your Google Drive. You can drop in website links, you can plug in YouTube links, or you can just like copy paste a text. And then what it does, it'll compile a list of all of the documentation that you've provided. And then you'll be able to like hit a check mark of the sources that you want to use. And then you can start prompting your Notebook LLM. So not only is it going to use the LLM brain, but it will also refer to the documentations that you have dropped. And that is another way to cut cost. And this is the whole cost thing, ROI thing is obviously like a little bit more advanced when you're, as a company, as a team, you're trying to figure out which LLM is right for me. How do I reduce my costs? How do I stay within my budget and all of that? On top of that, what it can do is also create an audio overview. So this has been like my cheat sheet. So at anytime I'm like looking to learn about something, be it books or similar, let's say actually like even learning about AI, I'll drop in all my YouTube links. And then what it does, it creates a podcast for me. And this is you can download it on your phone. And as you're driving, you can listen to the podcast that Notebook LM has created for you. It's also really great for creating a mind map. So if you drop in like a big PDF in here that's like 500 pages, it'll create a mind map and it'll show you how things connect. It can give you a quick report. It can give you like flashcards, which is great for like studying. And I wish this existed when I was in school. And then it can also like quiz you on your knowledge. So it's a pretty cool tool. It goes a little bit beyond the LLM. It needs documentation, it needs reference, but it's extremely powerful. So again, going back to our homework, please test out these different types of LLMs. I'll send over this deck your way. All the LLMs are linked here, and I'll make sure to link Notebook LM also. And with that, that's a wrap for LLM. And like I said, in our next session, we'll cover prompting, which is how you receive your output, which is super important because not only is it useful for LLMs, but also for the automations that you create, also for the agents that we'll be building or I'll be showing you. So next session will be all about prompting, and I'll get creative with it. We'll play with different prompts. I'll try to use the same example that we used today, but we'll use a framework, and then the output that we get will be more detailed based on how well we have tailored our prompt. That being said, it is time for Q&A. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I hope you have a lot of questions, but that's the time for it to be used now. Okay. Any questions?
Lynn, would you like to go first? I'm seeing the queue.
Yeah.
Are you talking to me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. To do these tests, do we have to pay for any of those models?
No, every model has a freemium version.
Okay.
But like I said, the freemium version has limited tokens, and this is like more behind of the scene thing but I just wanted you to understand why. So if you use ChatGPT, for example, and you've been prompting quite a bit, at some point it'll stop you and say, come back in a few hours. And that's because you've expired that time frame's tokens. So every version has a freemium version, but then you can pay and then you get unlimited and additional features. I personally highly recommend getting subscription for ChatGPT because OpenAI constantly updates. In the next few sessions, I'll show you how to build custom GPTs, which are, you can basically build a custom LLM. You can drop in knowledge. It'll act like for example, I have a custom GPT that summarizes all the books that I want to read, and it gives me summaries on a daily basis. I've just prompted it that way. So that's part of the paid version of ChatGPT. With ChatGPT and OpenAI now, you can also have automation. You can build automations within ChatGPT. You can create videos. There's just so much that it does. I'm not biased. I don't get paid by ChatGPT or anything, but it's just something that that's my go-to. I always try to keep up with OpenAI updates.
So when you're saying they're creating a video, is it out of the air, or what's your context for how they create a video?
So within ChatGPT, within OpenAI, they have paired with Sora. Yep, exactly. Someone said Sora is fantastic. So basically what you do is you prompt what you are looking for, which is why next session will be super important. Prompting is super important because not only is it for LLMs, but it's for the way any type of generative AI works, any type of automations, any type of agentic workflow works.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Veronica?
Hi, Kajal, I just want to say thank you for your presentation today. I have a question in regards to like personal data. Do you personally have any concerns about like where personal data or sensitive data could end up since these systems are like relatively new?
Yes, I do. I use ChatGPT mainly for business. I like, for example, it doesn't have my birth data, my social security number, anything like that. There are guardrails that I recommend following. So not sharing your personal data with LLMs. It is fairly new. And like I said, always keep up with, again, my go-to is OpenAI. Like OpenAI has very transparently said, do not use this do not share your personal data. There was an era where people were using LLMs, ChatGPT specifically for like therapeutic life advice, which it's questionable. I wouldn't specifically share my information, like what's going on in my life. Maybe just I guess my short answer is use your judgment. And yes, I am concerned about how my personal data is used within ChatGPT, or any LLM. So I try to keep it work and business professional oriented.
Okay, thank you. I was curious.
Fantastic. I love that we've got some homework for next time. If there is not any more, we're very excited to be inviting in the ZEFR team today. I've personally seen some of their presentations in the past. I'm looking forward to Ben, John, and everybody else on that team sharing what they have to share.
Fantastic. With that, I will take it over. Let me get my screen ready to go. So I am going here. I'm putting in the presenter view. And I am, nope, I am starting. Sorry, give me 1 second. Here. Can you guys see my screen? Sure looks like you can. All right, fantastic. So thank you guys so much for having myself and having ZEFR and Ben. Really excited to talk to you about what we're building here on the AI side. So before we get into it, a little bit about myself. My name is John Morra. I am the Chief AI Officer. I've been with the company a little over 9 years at this point. I've wore a number of hats. Right now I manage data science and machine learning and content policy. And I used to write a lot of AI algorithms myself. Prior to this role, I was at eHarmony, internet dating, where I oversaw algorithmic matchmaking. And prior to that, I had my own business doing machine learning and radiation oncology. So I've been around AI, ML for 20 years. I remember when the term data science was coined. So been in the game for a while. So a little bit about ZEFR. So ZEFR what we do is we understand content on social media on behalf of brands. So if you're a brand that advertises on YouTube, on TikTok, on Snap, on any of the meta platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, you might work with us to help your brand understand the content that you are adjacent to. And the way that we help brands is either we measure it and block it, so a verification service, or on YouTube, we can build targeting around content you want to be adjacent to. We operate at massive scale. Most of my team's time is figuring out how to train models and deploy them, where we're making hundreds of millions of inferences per day, right? So lots and lots and lots and lots of data. So with that, what I want to do is I really like jumping through a presentation where, I'm not a salesperson, but I like to kind of talk about business problems and how you might formulate them as AI. So one of the things that I found most successful in my career is being able to listen to various business problems that maybe you've had before, maybe you've encountered, or just inspire you. And how might you think about using AI to solve those? And I'll weave in a little bit of ZEFR throughout the presentation. Unfortunately, my thunder was stolen on this one because we already talked about RAG, but I am going to go a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. And let's talk a little bit about RAG. And as Kajal has said, this is retrieval augmented generation. So a popular business question. No, it's no problem at all. A popular business question you might want to answer here is, for instance, something that was really big in the summer. I'm a CPG brand. Summarize how red dye 40 was being discussed around my brand. So one of the things that's important to understand when we're talking about large language models is they all have what's called a knowledge cutoff date. So again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the way that these models are trained is that at some time, a copy of the internet is downloaded. Or if you're in proprietary medical, law, something like that, it could be some other large corpus. But in general, these are trained from a copy of the internet. And that internet copy is downloaded onto many, many, many computers. A model is trained that understands the internet, which is amazing. Like, that's just freaking amazing that we're at a state right now where we have the power, the data, the compute, and the algorithms to do that. But that model is wholly unaware of what happens in the future relative to when that copy was downloaded, right? It has no way of knowing because it was, downloaded at that time. And it's not uncommon for knowledge cutoff dates to be 6 to 12 months in the past relative to any model that's out today, because it takes a long time to train these models, right? So if you were to ask probably the current version of ChatGPT, you can actually look up their knowledge cutoff dates. They're very public with it. But certainly previous versions, it would have no idea why red dye 40 was important other than it's a food color. So how might we add that information? Well, as was discussed before, you need a database. So this is something that ZEFR kind of comes in and provides, but you can get your database anywhere. And when you talk with ChatGPT and you ask it, for instance, who's the president today, even though it might have been trained before November, it can still provide the answer because it's using the current internet as the database. So if you were to provide, if you had a semantic database of social media data like we have, the way that RAG works is a person comes in and they provide a prompt, right? And you saw an example. In fact, some of you, I'm sure, touched an example of a prompt. So simple prompt. Summarize content about brand XXX and red dye 40. And the way that the RAG system works is that, okay, I don't know the answer. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reach into my semantic database and I'm going to pull out all the information that's semantically similar, that has some kind of meaning with these tokens, with these words. And it's going to come back with a whole bunch of, in our case, posts, right? And depending on what your database is, it might be different. It's then going to use the original prompt and that extra information that's injected in the context, right? So retrieval, you could see it getting from the database, augmented, changing the generation RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Now, in ZEFR's case, what we do is we build something called a trending content report, and we found a lot of brands find this quite useful. So here's an example of a trending content report, in this case, focused on TikTok, right? And we were able to reach into our semantic database and pull out interesting information that's pertinent for this particular use case. Let's move on to another one. This one is near and dear to my heart, search. So you saw search a little bit with retrieval augmented generation, but I want to go deeper here. So a business question that I feel like I hear a lot is my brand IP being misused on social media, right? This is very important, especially for large brands, Fortune 50 brands. And so what we've done is we have recognized that AI search is actually a lot more powerful than traditional search. So in traditional search, you're looking for words. You're saying, can I find words in other texts that match these words? Well, you also heard Kajal talk about the idea of a modality. And I want to just double click on that for a second. A modality is simply a way of conveying information. And so what modern AI techniques are really good at is saying we can compress any information into tokens. We can compress text, we can compress images, audio, video. I used to work in medicine and we used to use the word modality all the time to talk about an X-ray or an MRI or a CT. They're all just ways of conveying information. Once you know how to do that, you can search about the semantics of something. So here you can all read these words, you can understand the semantics, and we can search for images that match those semantics. And this is really powerful for us and our brand clients, because a lot of times when we're on social media, the text around these images isn't this text at all. It might be, for instance, the smile emoji or something like that. But we're able to search and find it. And if you could do text to image, you could certainly do image to image. And so what this allows us to do is build complex classification algorithms where we can take an image like this and answer a set of questions that say whether or not this is brand misappropriation. And so this is really, really powerful way to scan our entire content database and be able to pick out examples. And in the case of this example, we'd probably block it, right? And say this is inappropriate for advertising. So another one I want to talk about is a little bit about deep research. And this has not been in the news as much as it was previously, but I have found it incredibly useful and I still use it regularly. So I have a whole deep research chat that I have here, and I kind of wanted to spend a couple minutes walking through it and talking about how it works, and maybe you guys can use it in your own work as well, because I use it all the time, just like you heard talked about before. So the first thing is that this is the prompt, and we talk a lot about prompts, and I think it's important to recognize that the way these models work is, as you heard, they're just next token predictors, right? So I'm a person, I'm typing on the keyboard, I'm entering some tokens. The model is then trying to predict the next token. The way that deep research specifically works and why I find it useful is the first thing it does, and this is what it's programmed to do, and different than vanilla ChatGPT, is that it says, I am not going to actually answer your prompt. Instead, I'm gonna go in and ask myself, because this is what it does, what are the questions that are unclear that if I had a better answer to, I could get better information for the user. And so that's exactly what it's doing. It is going through and saying, hey, here's some other things that if I know, I being ChatGPT, I'm personifying ChatGPT here, I could provide you more information. Here I am answering it, and then it goes and does it. What's really interesting about modern AI is we're really getting pretty bad at evaluating ourselves, because the LLMs are beating all of our benchmarks. And so one of the evaluations that we have right now is the amount of time that a model can work. So this model worked for 7 minutes. You might think that's an eternity, but if you were to ask a research, like an actual person to do this, they would probably work a lot more than 7 minutes to read all these sources and write the reports. And here it is summarizing it. So again, you see retrieval augmented generation in action again. And finally, I will say that the UI you see here is a little older UI. I got this screenshot recently, so it is still here as of, I think, last week when I put this together, under the plus icon. I do want to give a couple of disclaimers here. We talked a little bit about privacy. When we are using the free version, I know this on ChatGPT because I just looked, and I'm pretty sure this is true on all other models. They can store your chats as long as they want, right? So what that means that if you put in proprietary company information or any kind of personal information or anything, OpenAI or Google or Anthropic or DeepSeek, and whoever owns DeepSeek, now has that information, and they are free to do whatever they want with it. So I love LLMs. I use them all the time. I use them every day. But do be incredibly careful about what you put in there, especially if you're using the free version, right? Again, I've seen people do this where they'll say, oh, I have XYZ Excel spreadsheet around customer behavior and analyze it for me, drop it in, boop. Now, we pay for it. So when we pay for it, we have a contract with OpenAI that says they won't store it. But if you don't pay for it, congratulations, OpenAI now has that data. So I cannot stress that enough. Please, please, please be careful. Another caveat I want to give is, I don't know how many of you have heard the term AI slop, and I'm going to talk a little bit about AI slop in a minute. But one of the things that I've seen proliferating, unfortunately, in my work is work slop. And if you will indulge me for a second, it's now become very easy with very little work to generate something that is long and has a lot of tokens and reads really well. But remember, you are the owner of your own work. I have caught people before who haven't read it, who just said, oh, this is what the AI model gave me. So please make sure that you read it. And work slop is the idea of, oh, people can just generate 10, 20, 30, 40 page reports and it looks beautiful, but they didn't read it. So please make sure that you guys own your own work output. Cool. So the next business question I want to talk about is content moderation. So this is kind of ZEFR's bread and butter. In this case, my YouTube campaign is about to start. How do I ensure I serve mostly around travel content? So the way that we work is we have a very, very large database of content that we've downloaded across all different social media platforms. And then what we do is we have a content database and we want to classify it. So in this case, is it travel or not? You could replace that with, is it crime or not? For instance, if we were providing brand safety verification. What we found is that large language models are actually really good at reviewing content. And so the state of the art now is that we take these large language models and we ask them with our policies, does this match the policy or not? We then use humans to make sure that they're getting the right answer. They are not perfect. We use this to train a small AI model Mistakes are identified. This creates this virtuous human in the loop cycle with large language models, and we output our best AI model. And so what this process is a process called distillation. So to distill means to extract. So we have this large language model which understands a ton. However, it is unbelievably expensive. ChatGPT is super cool. You guys should use it. But if you try and use it 300 million times a day, Sam Altman's going to knock on your door and say, please stop. There's no amount of money that I can take that would do that. So what we do is, this is really our expertise, is the ability to understand content, nuanced content at scale. So I do want to touch a little bit on, oh, and I will say too, that this is actually research that we've done on this recently. We presented, I was in Hawaii 2 weeks ago, presenting on brand new peer-reviewed research on LLM classification at the International Conference on Computer Vision, and how the use of LLMs is still frontier research in a lot of content moderation paradigms, not just brand safety, which is super cool. I also do want to touch briefly on misinformation. We take misinformation very seriously here in ZEFR. In fact, we acquired an Israeli company in 2022 to focus only on misinformation. And the reason that it's different is that human review of misinformation is an incredibly daunting task, right? To look at a piece of content and say whether there's, like, it's about travel is something most humans can do. It doesn't take very long. But to assert the truth of something is a journalistic endeavor. And so the way that we've solved this is by partnering with the International Fact-Checking Organization Network, in order to download a bunch of facts, and we train AI models that understand those facts and can assert whether content is not true according to those facts. So this is another expression of our AI prowess, but in this case, using facts instead of large language models and human moderators as the basis for truth. So I know you guys talked about AI tips and tricks. I do want to leave you with a few because this is what I do. And I think this is, some of this is repeating what you had heard before, but I think it bears repeating as you use these models. These models are trained to do exactly what you tell them to do, and they will try their best to infer where it's unclear, but the more clear the instructions are, the better, right? So I like very, very clear instructions. Longer prompts doesn't always mean better output, but they will, in general, adhere to those prompts. I like to assign roles. I like to start my prompts with, you are a blank. You will do this, right? Declarative statements. There's something in machine learning parlance called few-shot learning. A shot in this case is an example, and these models work really well when you provide examples. So if you're like, I want a report that looks like this, give it a couple of examples of reports that have happened in the past. It will follow those. And finally, state constraints. What should it not do? I'll give you guys a cheat that I've used before, is that Google published a like 70-page prompting guide. And sometimes if I need a prompt and I don't know what to write, I will literally say, I need a prompt for this, and then paste in Google's prompting guide and ask it for a prompt. It's called meta prompting, a prompt for a prompt. And that allows me to then review that prompt and say, oh yes, this is what I want, or change it however I want. I found this to be quite effective. One of the last things I'll talk about is context. We talked a lot about context, about the prompt, but one of the active area of research that my team is undergoing is on the topic of doubt. So I'm going to do a little experiment for you. Oh, actually, I already showed you. Does everyone remember the book of Mice and Men? I assume you probably read it when you were a child. Was the first character mentioned? Give me a thumbs up if it was George, and a thumbs down if it was Lenny. If I said, who is the first character mentioned of Mice and Men? Thumbs up for George, thumbs down for Lenny. I see one Lenny. I see one I don't know. I see two I don't knows. And I see one Lenny, and I see one George, and I see, oh, another Lenny. Fantastic. All right. So I just heard conflicting opinions and two people who chose to express doubt, even though I didn't give that as an option. What does ChatGPT say? It says it's George, right? And if you read this, there's no room for doubt. It says it's George. This is not a humanistic response. Even for those of you that chose not to express doubt, I bet you all of you had doubt. Right? We all read the book, but gosh, that is such a specific question. I don't know in the first 2 pages. Now, if you were to paste in the first 2 pages into the same prompt and ask it the question, it says Lenny. The right answer is Lenny, but that's not important. What's important is that it was very sure in both cases, right? And so the reason that it does this is these models are trained to mimic our behavior, and we as people suck at doubt. We just don't like it, right? If I tell you I'm a doctor and I say there's a 99.999% chance you don't have cancer, you would probably feel worse than if I said you don't have cancer, even though the first statement is probably more correct. And so what we've done is we've trained doubt out of these systems. And so I think this is a super interesting area of research. We're actually looking to publish some research next year on exactly this and how it fits into our business, which is understanding content, because the internet's freaking weird, right? And the ability to have LLMs say, gosh, I don't know, escalate to your human moderation team is a really important endeavor for us. So the last thing I'll end with, I know I'm almost at time, are current trends in AI. We talked about Sora. We scanned our database. This data is a little old, but the trend has continued. And if you look at the amount of content mentioning Sora, it's increased dramatically across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I don't have Facebook here, and Facebook data. 1,000% increase in some instances. Sora 2 was released on October 1st. So you can see this rapid rise. And the interesting thing, doing an analysis for this presentation, for this talk, is that the second one is VIO, which is Google's model, also Nano Banana. I don't know why they call it that, but that's also Google's image gen model. And then Midjourney is third. That's an older image gen model. And we are focused a lot on understanding risk. And an interesting stat in preparing for this is that AI-generated content is 94% riskier, with social issues being the most risky at 200% more risky. So what we see is that there is this rise in AI-generated content, and I'll be the first to say, I don't know why people are choosing to create riskier content, but they are. And we're monitoring it, we're finding it, and if your customers are, we're making sure that you're not supporting it. And let's give you a take-home, a couple of examples. So I don't know how much you guys use TikTok or any of these products, but let's look at what some AI-generated video actually looks like. So first one, fun, innocuous, weird, a dog with a laser coming out of its butt. I think everyone would look at this and be like, yeah, this is fun. It doesn't, whatever. It is what it is. The next one, a little more risque, a dead politician's been dead for hundreds of years. Abraham Lincoln rapping about social commentary. I think most people would recognize this is not real. He's obviously not alive, but you replace that with other ones. And then we have the downright just terrible, I don't know how else to say it, a fake Disney movie featuring a fake Adolf Hitler about the Holocaust. So horrible content. And unfortunately, this is the kind of content that we find occasionally on the internet and in our social media database that we want to keep you away from. So some key takeaways, and I'll go fast through these because you heard them. Do you use AI regularly? I use it pretty much every day. I would encourage you guys to as well. Do you have agents? So we talked a little bit about agents. But the idea of an agent is, can your AI take actions on your behalf? RAG is an example of an agent, searching a database. There's lots of other examples. And finally, do you have trust and monitoring solutions and governance for AI? Right? We talked about this in the beginning, the idea of governance, making sure that your data is yours. So please make sure you have that set up in your company or your organization, or you're well aware of what you're giving to AI and the trade-off that you're not paying for it. And so as a result, they can store your data. So with that, I'm done. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any. I went kind of fast through that, but yeah, happy to take any questions. Yes, please. Lynn. You're on mute, Lynn. Sorry.
I was giving you a hand, sorry.
I appreciate you doing that audit, verbally as well. Cool. If we have
Fantastic. I love the mix of, as we continue to take this from zero to hero, just understanding how professionals are using this, how we can take things that we slowly learn. I still think the prompts that Kajal is sharing of like, how do I do my job is incredible, and I need to still get to that level. So I'm really excited for the next, the following 6 classes where we have other people join us. But again, this will be posted. I really appreciate ZEFR coming in, and I'll pass it back over to you, Kajal.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was super helpful. And I'm excited for the next session because we'll combine everything that we've learned about LLMs and prompting, and we'll see how our output evolves based on how well we prompt or how well we don't prompt. So excited for the next few sessions.
Yeah, and we, this sort of started in Chicago where CIMA is located, but we've had tremendous buy-in from Think LA and starting to get some questions from 212 NYC. So this is going national. We're really excited to have everybody join us. So if somebody's interested, you can share this with them. But just excited to share this with all the IMAs across the country. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.